unconquerable spirit. They gave us that motto for a reason. This is it. I'm going down fighting.
Well guys, I don't really even know where to begin with this one. Because this is an online FPS, there are several things that I can talk about, but I guess I'll start off with my first impressions of the game. As I previously mentioned, this was my first full Battlefield experience, and I gotta say that I completely understand why the franchise has such a big following. Battlefield 6 is a game that I feel like accommodates to both new players and old players alike. They provide you with a good amount of weapons, awesome game modes, an okay narrative that if nothing else is somewhat entertaining, and addictive gameplay that will make you keep on coming back for more. The very first thing that I tried when I got the game was the campaign mode. With only 9 story missions to speak of, the campaign was pretty short-lived, but it did feel like a decent introduction to the game. The story itself had you playing as different members of a squad in which the player had the opportunity to use different weaponry, gadgets, and vehicles. Overall, I gotta say the storytelling to me was just a bit confusing and pretty chaotic, and also the writing just felt pretty generic to me, as is usually the case with these types of games. The campaigns in these games usually feel like an afterthought, and this game didn't do anything different to set itself apart in that regard. For one, it was hard for me to get attached to any main character because you really didn't have a main character. You played as several different members of a squad, and none of them were memorable or impacted the story in any meaningful way. I feel like you could have inserted any generic soldier in the campaign and the result would have been the exact same. The actual storytelling was hard to follow because there was a bunch of skipping back and forth between missions, and the mission briefings threw a lot of information at you at once. Even the parts that were supposed to be impactful felt anticlimactic, and even the main antagonist, Alexander Kincaid, was pretty underwhelming with his performance. What you did get with the campaign, however, was decent visuals, tons of explosions and destruction, and decent gameplay. Again, as an introduction to the game's gameplay, I think the campaign is fine because the missions themselves had you using a plethora of different gadgets and weapons, but as an actual story that was meant to be taken seriously, the game fails. All in all, I did enjoy playing through most of the different levels in the campaign, with the exception of a couple, and there was some to be had. Some sections had over-the-top action and a ton of in-world destruction, which made you feel the weight of what it was that you were doing. If you play the campaign just to play it, without taking it too seriously, I think you'll have an okay time, even with the confusing narrative and generic writing. I should add that a lot of people don't really play these games for the storytelling, which to me is a real shame because that's honestly what makes these developers lazy with their stories. It would be cool if more of our voices were heard and if we could all demand better campaigns with an actual worthwhile narrative and good writing. To me, the stories don't always have to be so cut and dry. Where were the twists and turns, and why weren't the missions more fleshed out? What happened to proper character development? It was pretty non-existent in this game. Why not shake things up for a change and change the formula and the approach? What if, throughout your mission, you had to survive off the land and had limited ammo? And what if not all the missions were so over the top, and instead, you had to take a stealthier, more realistic approach to things? What about customization options during your campaign experience, where you can customize your loadout based on the mission you had at hand? What about unlockables? I mean, as you progress through the game, you don't get rewarded in any type of way. It would have been cool to see the player rewarded for completing certain missions. Whether that was with cosmetics, weapons, vehicles, or even perks, a reward system could have made playing the campaign feel more worthwhile and not so much as a box you just check off. Still, at least they gave you some semblance of a story and at least attempted to give you some sort of narrative, but all in all, it just failed. It wasn't good. I'm here! The multiplayer in Battlefield 6 is probably nothing revolutionary to old-time players, but for someone like me, it was pretty innovative. There are some notable differences between this multiplayer and the multiplayer in Call of Duty, which is what I've been used to for a long time. For starters, I noticed that the Battlefield player base pays a bit more attention to the actual goal at hand and not just how many kills they can rack up during a match. That's because Battlefield gives you the option of playing one of 4 different classes, all of which serve a unique purpose during a match. The Assault class is responsible for leading the charge and attacking on the front line. The Support class is in charge of reviving fallen comrades. The Engineer class is in charge of repairing vehicles and damaging enemy vehicles, and the Recon class is the spotter of the team. This class focuses on long-range combat and on marking enemy vehicles to make destroying them and enemy targets a lot easier. It's important to know that the game is not always played the right way. You still got people that don't necessarily play to their role and who don't, play in a coordinated manner. But when they do, and when people do actually stick to what their assignment is, it leads to some pretty coordinated teamwork that makes a victory that much more meaningful. There are other reasons to play a specific class besides just the respective role too. Each class also offers the player some additional equipment that might fit in with their playstyle a little bit more. For example, if I'm playing as an assault role, I have the benefit of having 2 primary weapons instead of 1. I also get enhanced mobility and I get to use a grenade launcher. If I'm playing a support role, not only can I revive teammates instantly, but I also have the ability to deploy cover and to supply the team with ammunition. The Engineer class not only serves as an enemy vehicle deterrent, but also allows me to use launchers, mines, EOD bots, and the Recon class allows me to use motion detectors, C4s, and drones. Now, aside from the equipment, you can also get unique training paths, or perks as I like to call them, which are class specific. Each one serves as somewhat of a subclass and offers different advantages that enhance your overall playstyle. As an engineer, for example, you can have either the anti-armor training path active or the combat engineer training path active. The anti-armor path focuses on extra rocket launcher ammo and faster launcher reload speeds, while the combat engineer path focuses on enhancing your repair gadgets and overheat control while using vehicle weapons to help with cooldown times. The loadout that you end up using is going to totally depend on the match, and it's going to be dependent on your playstyle as well. The good thing is that there definitely seems to be a fit here for everybody. I like that you can truly get creative with each class and how you use them. Battlefield 6 also gives you several different weapons to use. The game boasts 52 different weapons, and I gotta say, I enjoyed most of the ones that I used. They all felt responsive, realistic, and fit the gameplay perfectly. The sound effects the guns made were distinct and added a good level of realism. That's because the game had excellent sound effects. Being able to hear the echoes in the distance after you shoot a bullet, or hearing the wisp of a sniper shot that barely missed you, were minor details that really went a long way. As I mentioned earlier, the gunplay was pretty good, with the weapons all feeling distinct from one another, but I gotta say that I did have a problem with some of the SMGs feeling overpowered. Plenty of times I would get the drop on someone and would still die because the SMG's rate of fire and damage output were ridiculous. Hopefully they are able to address this with an update at some point in the near future. I also gotta admit that the sniping in this game, although satisfying, takes a while to get used to. You have to get really proficient with aiming towards the head and the chest area. If you don't, all you'll be getting is a bunch of hit markers, which can be really frustrating, especially when you have the drop on someone. Even though learning how to snipe in this game requires a bit of patience, I will say when you do get the hang of it, the sniper kills are really satisfying in this game. Besides how it was that the weapons actually felt from a cosmetic perspective, I also did enjoy the modifications you can add to your weapons. The different scopes and attachments are visible when you're using your weapon and gives them that extra personal touch. I will say, however, that I did find some of the weapon attachments to just be a bit unnecessary. Like the flashlight, for example, was something that I found wasn't needed for enhanced hip fire. If anything, I just felt like it gave up your position. But perhaps even worse than some of the unnecessary attachments was just how bad I found the progression system to be in this game. The progression in Battlefield 6 to me just felt like a huge grind, guys. Unlocking weapons, gadgets, and higher level equipment requires you to complete several different in-game challenges, some of which are just absolutely ridiculous. How the hell am I supposed to get 150 plus headshots using a sniper from 200 millimeters away on maps that don't even support long-range sniping? And even with the ones that do, at that distance, you're more than likely going to get more hit markers than anything because of the damage output. And from what I was able to see, there was no real way to enhance the damage on the sniper that I was using. Another example could be getting 30 revives in a squad deathmatch, which is damn near impossible because the match ends well before your team ever dies that many times. How am I supposed to complete that? This to me has to be the biggest flaw in the multiplayer. The progression doesn't feel as rewarding as it should, which is a real shame because being able to unlock new attachments and better weapons is the whole point. You play to get better attachments and weapons to gain an advantage when playing against other players. Once I started realizing how ridiculous some of these challenges were, I just decided to play the game for the sake of playing and not for the sake of unlocking anything. If I just so happened to unlock something, then it was just a cherry on top. The good thing is that what you did have early on in the game was pretty fun to use and effective, and when you do eventually unlock some of the newer weapons, you'll have some fun using them. Now this wouldn't be a Battlefield review if I didn't talk to you guys about the vehicles. I gotta say, the vehicle gameplay, specifically the tank gameplay, to me in this game is super fun. Vehicles in this game can really change the tides of battle and really enhance your overall experience. Whether that was getting to a point quicker using transport vehicles or being on the front lines providing cover fire for your teammates, the vehicles in this game really make a difference. Not only do you get different types of tanks to use like battle tanks, infantry tanks, you're also able to unlock different weapons, different gadgets for your vehicles, and you can unlock different armor for your vehicle too. All of the tanks and the different vehicles serve their own purpose within the match. The vehicle gameplay is centered around 8 core vehicle types, but the main ones that you'll be using for combat are the tanks, jets, attack helicopters, and infantry vehicles. During large-scale battles, putting these vehicles to use really intensified combat and made the Battlefield experience that much more enjoyable. If I had to say one negative thing about the vehicle gameplay is that the jet controls were terrible initially. They were confusing and the button layout didn't make much sense to me. Thankfully, I was able to edit the controls and get a little bit better at flying the jet, but still, I definitely need more practice. So, let's wrap this one up, guys. Battlefield 6 is an FPS that severely lacked in the story department, but that made up for it in the multiplayer. It had decent maps, although far too few in my opinion, good visuals, and a great concept that any first-time player could enjoy. It had awesome game modes like Breakthrough, Escalation, and Conquest for awesome large-scale battles, and some faster-paced game modes like Rush, King of the Hill, and Squad Deathmatch. You also got some of the more common game modes like Team Deathmatch and Domination, which were very clearly geared towards the Call of Duty player base. The visuals were great, the gunplay responsive, and the world was more reactive to what was going on. There was destruction and debris everywhere, explosions, buildings collapsing on you, intense combat, coordination, and awesome gameplay. The campaign story was terrible though, and some of the missions were just bad. The progression felt like too much of a grind, and I think the game could use a refresh with even the user interface. It was a little bit overwhelming at first to learn exactly where everything was and how to find things, and navigating through multiple screens to customize your weapons did get annoying at some point. Still, overall, I did enjoy my time with the game. So for those reasons, Battlefield 6 has earned itself a solid 8 out of 10. If you're an old-time Battlefield player, I think you'll enjoy this one, and if you're new to the franchise like I was and are looking for a solid FPS to get into, I think this is one that you should definitely pick up. Alright guys, there you have it. Thank you so much for sticking with me to the end and for the support. I really appreciate you guys watching the video. It really does mean the world. Sorry this one took me a while to get out. My wife and I just had a baby and life has been pretty chaotic lately. Still, my goal is to continue to put out content, so if you did enjoy the video, don't forget to hit that like and subscribe button. Also, what did you guys think about Battlefield 6 and how do you feel about it after watching the review? Don't forget to leave your comments in the comment section below, and as always, be on the lookout for another video from your boy, Makina. Peace.